Scott Holiday here, and welcome back to Plus 2 Wrestling. Now, we just had Wrestle Dream that AEW put on, which was a fantastic pay-per-view, and they did something real subtle that I really enjoyed, that it's not enough for that I could do a full video on it, but I thought I'd talk about it real quick here in the cold open. They did something great with Edge's debut I wanted to point out. We ended the pay-per-view with Darby Allin, the hometown boy, trying to wrestle away that TNT championship from Christian, and just coming up short. We had Nick Wayne betraying his good friend Darby Allin, disgusting his own mother, and as Darby laid beaten and destroyed on a broken ring, Luchasaurus, Christian, and Nick Wayne stood tall. Now, if you were there in the arena, the way that they posed and paused for a second, you actually might think that was the end of the pay-per-view. The way that they stopped and paused, and then the way that the energy kind of shifted, you could believe if you were there, oh, this is them framing up that final shot and throwing up the copyright to end this pay-per-view. AEW knows that its fans are a bunch of smart marks, and they were trying to play on that and hope that the people there thought that they had figured it out. This continued by bringing out Sting, but without Sting's music. They did this for a couple reasons. One, they didn't want to waste the pop on Sting. Not that Sting doesn't deserve it, but playing Sting's music would have caused a pop, and they wanted to keep the fans, energized for when You Think You Knew Him came on. So by not playing his music and having Sting come out, it kept the energy low, and also it lowered the theatrics of the moment so that the people in the arena could again believe, oh, we're off the air at this point. This is the dark, sending us home happy moment. Sting's gonna come out and run roughshod over everybody. And Sting actually does get quite a bit of offense in. He's trying to take everyone out. And it's not until they cut him off and set him up for the concerto that the fans start to realize, oh, wait a minute, we might still be live. And then the lights go out. I think having that just small moment where you could trick the people in the arena to thinking the pay-per-view went off the air is brilliant. AEW is really good at putting those just little touches, playing with the tropes that we as wrestling fans already know, and using them against us. In any case, I just wanted to say how much I enjoyed that. And now let's plug in. Very Saturday, October 7th, it is Tournament of Death 20 years of ultra violence. So be sure to join us at 179 Ebenezer Church Road in Townsend, Delaware. The bell rings at p.m. It's an early show because it's outdoors and the only light is the sun. It's also BYOB, so be sure you come prepared, and you can also bring your weapons. I will personally be there to collect them so I can make sure they get a good spot in the ring, and you can watch your favorite deathmatch wrestlers bash each other over the heads with them. Now, we almost know the full tournament. We know Orin Veidt will be there, but we do not know who he will be facing. But we do know that we will have Eric Ryan versus Slack. Plus, we will also have the Joe-Off, Big Effin' Joe versus Judge Joe Dredd. And in a rematch of last year's final, it is Bobby Beverly versus Mickey Knuckles, who had this to say.
I don't do a lot of things. I don't really go and try to put something out there in the world because 9 times out of 10 I don't get it anyways, right? But with me and Bobby, last year we had the TOD finals, and it kind of felt gypped because in all actuality what knocked me out was a bored donkey punching me in the back of the fucking head. Feel like maybe I don't want to say got taken advantage of, but I also feel like there's no closure there. So I asked for you again, Bobby. I said, you know what? First round matchup, I want Bobby. Because in order to be the best, you got to beat the best, right? And Bobby was last year's winner. But I don't want normal stipulation. Because I remember last year Bobby saying something along the lines of, what was it? You can drink me under the table? Do you remember that? You can drink me under the table. So let's do this, Bobby. Let's do a drunken Taipei death match. Because I'm accustomed to Taipei death matches. And since you think you can drink me under the table, let's see what happens. Let's mix alcohol, blood, gore. Sounds like a great time to me. So accept it. Don't. It looks bad on you either way if you try to flake out of this. But that is my challenge to you, Bobby, is a drunken Taipei death match. And I will see you Saturday, and you better have my fucking whiskey. See ya.
So today on the Soapbox, I've been doing commentary for quite some time, and people tend to ask me questions and get annoyed at some of the cliches that we have in the world of commentating, the way we repeat ourselves, the way we choose our words very carefully, the way we say certain things, and I wanted to tell you that these happen for a reason. So here are 5 secret reasons why we do commentary the way we do. Number 1. Pronouns, pal. Pronouns, pal has become kind of a fun inside joke in the wrestling world. It is something that Vince McMahon said to Bobby the Brain Heenan, but not on camera. A lot of people think that we heard him say this, but we never actually heard him say it. It's something that Vince said off camera after a very frustrating interaction between the two of them, where Bobby the Brain Heenan was trying to tell some story beats, and Vince kept interrupting him, saying things like, he who? Who do you mean by he? He wanted him to use his name. And there's a couple reasons why we don't use pronouns. Let's say I'm calling a match between, I don't know, Griffin McCoy and Rich Swann, who actually will be fighting for the CZW Championship in November. I will always say something along the lines of, oh, Griffin working over the leg of Rich Swann, instead of Griffin working over his leg. It's a little confusing if you just say his leg because you don't know who you're talking to. And you might think it is obvious that he's working over Swann's leg, that's who he's wrestling. But there are little moments of confusion in that. For example, if I were to say, ooh, Rich Swann going for his title. Is it Rich Swann's title or is it Griffin McCoy's title? I would only use that if I was saying his own title. That's to prevent confusion. So it would either be Griffin McCoy going for Swann's title or Swann going for his title. By only doing it that way, we are informing the crowd that, like, when we use pronouns, that we are referring to the person we had already spoken of. I mean, that's how the English language should work anyway. You shouldn't use a pronoun unless you've established who the noun is. And we try to do that on commentary. Now, a lot of people have asked me, though, why do I phrase it that way? Why is it Griffin McCoy working over the leg of Rich Swann rather than Griffin McCoy working over Swann's leg? It's actually just to make it easier to make sure I don't use pronouns. Griffin McCoy working over his leg makes sense as a sentence. Griffin McCoy working over the leg of him makes less sense, and it kind of forces me to use the competitor's name. And that's not the only reason that we always want to use the competitor's name. It's also for repetition. We always assume that each show is someone's first time watching us, so establishing the names is very important. On top of that, a lot of people have multiple names. Take Griffin McCoy, Big Griff, Griffin, McCoy, the Top Guy Time. I can work in all those different names and establish him as a person. I can't do that if I say him. So that's why we don't use pronouns. It's just better. Number 2, Tope Suicida. There was a time in wrestling where everyone hated that call. The Tope Suicida through the ropes. There was also a time where almost every wrestler was doing a Tope Suicida. And it was annoying that we were saying Tope Suicida. I don't actually speak Spanish, so why am I saying Spanish words in the middle of this match? Believe it or not, it's because of YouTube. If I were to say tope suicida, what those words mean in English, I use some words that YouTube really doesn't like. And in using those words, YouTube may suppress them. So it's safer to say tope suicida. You also might remember there was a time in the WWE where they were even trying to move away from tope suicida. Despite the fact that everyone was doing them and it was the go-to spot to go to commercial, they started switching it up by saying things like Bryan Danielson with the Flying Goat, or oh, ooh, so crazy. That was my least favorite one. Or the Flying Lunatic by Dean Ambrose. They were trying to avoid using a controversial word that might actually hurt the algorithm of YouTube. And that's why we use tope suicida. Like, what other choice do I have? I can't call it an unalive dive. From now on, I'm calling all tope suicidas unalive dives. You heard it here first. Number 3, Scott Holiday here. I get made fun of a lot for the way that I say that. Scott Holiday here. People like to make fun of that, and I understand it, but I do it for a very specific reason, is that most of the companies that I work for, I am the usual commentary guy, and then I usually have the same or some rotating people in and out. So I always welcome everyone by saying Scott Holiday here, because I'm kind of the baseline, like, oh, it's Scott. This is the product that I'm used to. And then I introduce the other voice so they are not confused by who that other voice is. As someone who is usually on commentary and the other person switching out, it is my job to let everyone know, hey, commentary just switched. I am no longer sitting next to Key Min. I am now sitting next to Jared Diaz. I am no longer sitting next to Maestro. I am sitting next to Philly Mike. I am including that just because I'm the baseline, and now I want you to make sure you understand who the person next to me is. On top of that, it brings me back to my friend, YouTube. All these matches are going to be cut up and stuck on YouTube all the time. So that's why sometimes I introduce myself mid-show, like Scott Holiday here for match 4. If you're watching the whole show as a unit, of course you know it's Scott Holiday. You've been listening to me for 3 matches. But if this is a big match and is going to end up on YouTube on its own, I got to make sure you know who I am, because that's important to me so that I can get over. Also, I hate watching wrestling and having to go, who's on commentary? Usually I say that when I'm annoyed, and it's probably best I don't know their name. But that's why it's said so often. Commentary tends to set themselves up over and over again because they're not seeing the show as one show. They're seeing the show as a collection of matches that will be separated and thrown on the internet. Number 4, insider terms. Now, it should come as no surprise that we try not to use insider lingo on commentary. I don't want to call anyone a jobber or an enhancement talent. I don't want to call anyone a face or a heel, even though in Chikara we did say Technico and Rudo on commentary, which I always thought was strange, but I think that's what made us different. I don't know. It was weird. But we basically don't want to break the illusion. There's not a time during a film where someone turns to the camera and goes, by the way, I'm Tom Hanks playing a character. We know that you know what you're seeing is a work of fiction, but we're not going to address it because we exist within that world of fiction. So using those insider terms of like bump and things like that are things we try to avoid. But there's a few more that you probably don't realize that we avoid using. A big one that I actually had to break myself from using because I loved using it was stiff. Stiff shot to the jaw, a stiff kick to the chest. Stiff is a really good, impactful word. It has a nice gliding S into that sound, which is really impactful, and I thought it was a good tool to use in my vocabulary. But stiff, of course, has an insider connotation of I'm hitting you harder than I should be in terms of wrestling. Like, you're too stiff with your strikes means that you're hitting me too hard. Now, even if you don't know that, if I say, ooh, a stiff shot, a stiff punch to the chest, a stiff chop to the chest, a stiff shot to the nose, all shots should be stiff. If I'm not saying it's stiff, am I saying it was like, ooh, a real soft shot there? Soft elbow to the chest, soft forearms being rained down. Stiff is not a word I should have to use because it is a word describing what every shot should be. It's like if I said, ooh, that punch was a closed fist. Well, yeah, that's what a punch is. So it's unnecessary for me to use that. Another one that I try to avoid that is a bit strange that a lot of people don't agree with me on is the words feud and rivalry. I'll use rivalry if I'm talking about a friendly rivalry. I think that's a good way to describe the issue, but I try never to say something like, these guys have been feuding for a while, which has led us to this matchup. I don't do it because, again, it's kind of an insider term, especially with GM mode on 2K23. The words rivalry and feud are kind of intertwined with that world, and it's just not how we talk as people unless we're talking about wrestling. And on top of that, if I were to say to you, oh, these two tag teams have been feuding for a while, which has led to this matchup, I really haven't told you anything. That sentence is no better than these two teams don't like each other. Matter of fact, they don't like each other is a better description. Saying that they're feuding is just using insider terms to express that they've had other matches. It is much stronger to explain why they're feuding. I like to say that these two teams have had their issues and then explain why. They attacked them outside the arena. Ooh, that's bad. They stole their car. Oh my God. They killed their dog. Oh my God, what company do I work for? So things like that are much stronger than simply saying feud or rivalry because it's a bit insider and not helpful to the conversation and story that we are trying to tell. Number 5. So question for you. Are you watching this closely? Are you watching this video closely or do you have it on in the background? If you do have it on in the background, don't worry. I'm not upset or anything. But did you have a moment where you're like, what happened? Did the video stop? Did I get an ad? Did I lose audio for a second? That is the power of silence. This is something that commentary really needs to utilize more often, in my opinion. But Jake the Snake said, if you really want to make someone listen, you should get quieter because it forces you to pay attention. There's a lot that can affect a match, but when the commentary falls silent for a moment, it forces the audience to wonder why that happened, and it forces them to pay attention more. That's why there's not a lot of dead air in commentary, because if it happened a lot, it wouldn't be that special thing. But when something truly grave or something truly unbelievable or shocking has happened, instead of filling it with descriptions of, oh, this is horrible, oh, this is gross, let the audience feel that pain themselves. Fall silent. It makes them watch. It makes them pay attention. So if you've ever watched a wrestling show and thought, what happened to commentary? Might be planned. One of the best examples I could possibly think of, and going back to a long-running feud that I mentioned in a previous episode, is Owen Hart and Shawn Michaels. Owen Hart hits an enziguri and hits Shawn Michaels right in the back of the head. He then ejects Owen Hart, poses for a minute, gets a little bit dizzy, and face plants onto the mat. And there is no commentary after that moment. No speculation of, oh, is Shawn okay? What happened here? Ooh, this is an emergency. We need help out here right now. Just silence. Something has gone wrong. Nobody knows what to say. Silence. Great tool in any talker's voice. So that's going to do it for this edition of Plus 2 Wrestling. You know what I need you to do? I need you to tope suicida that subscribe button. And while you're down there, ring the bell of the YouTube video so you'll get a notification next time I upload one of these videos. What cliches have you noticed that commentary does? Leave it in the comments below and I'll tell you while I do it, because I'm a very cliche-filled commentator. And I hope you have a great day.